Hello and welcome back to Kim Read. It's my birthday, yay! And because it's the 1st of October, I want to start a horror book. I want to read Misery. So part 1, Annie. So the chapters are these, they're very short. Like really short. So I'm just going to read what I can. Chapter 1. Umber 1. You're number 1. Vain. These sounds, even in a haze. 2. But sometimes the sounds, like the pain, faded and there was only the haze. Remember the darkness. All darkness comes before the haze. Did that mean he was making progress? Let there be light, even of the hazy variety, and the light was good, and so on and so on. Had these sounds existed even in the darkness? He didn't know the answers to any of these questions. Did it make sense to even ask them? He didn't know the answers to that one either. The pain was somewhere below the sounds. The pain was east of the sun and south of his ears. That was all he did know. From some length of time that seemed very long, and so was since the pain and stormy haze, there was only 2 things which existed. There was the only outer reality. He had no idea where he was, or what he was, or where he was, and cared to know either. He wished he was dead, but through the pain-soaked haze that filled his mind like a summer storm cloud, he didn't know he wished it. By the time he became aware, there were periods of non-pain, and that he had a silent quality, and for the first time since emerging from the total blackness which had prolonged the haze, he thought he had existed apart from whatever his current situation was. This thought was of the broken-off piling he had dreaded from the sand at Revere Beach. His father and mother had taken him to the Revere Beach often when he was a kid, and he had always insisted that they spread there where he could keep an eye on them, which he looked like a single jutting vein of a buried monster. He liked to sit and watched and water come up until it covered the piling. Then hours later, after the sandwiches and potato had been eaten, after the last few drops of Kool-Aid had been coaxed from his father's big thermos just before his mother said to come up and start home, she top around a piling would begin to show again, just a peak and flash become the waves at first, then more and more. By the time their trash was stashed in the big drum with Keep Your Beach Clean stencils on the side, Polly's beach toys picked up. That's where my name, Polly. I'm Polly, and tonight Moll put Johnson's baby boil on my sunburn. He thought inside the thunder hadn't worn out he lived. And the blanket folded again. The piling had almost wholly reappeared. Its blackish, slime smooth sides surrounded by sudsy scubs of foam. It was the tide, his father had tried to explain. But he always knew there was a piling. The tide came and went, and the piling stayed. It was just that sometimes you couldn't see it. Without the piling, there was no tide. His memory circled and circled, maddening like a sluggish fly. He groped for whatever it might mean, but for a long time the sounds interrupted. Phaon, read everything, Umber 1. Sometimes the sound stopped, sometimes he stopped. His first really clear memory of this now, then the now storm haze, waves of stopping, of being suddenly aware he just couldn't pull another breath, and that was all right. That was good. That was just peachy keen. He couldn't take a certain level of pain, but enough was enough. He was glad to be getting out of the game. Then there was a mouth clamped over his, a mouth which was unmistakably a woman's mouth, in spite of its hard, spitless lips, and the wind from a woman's mouth blew into his own and down his throat, puffing his lungs, and when the lips were pulled back, he smelled his water for the first time. Smelled around the outrush of the lips she had forced into him the way a man might force himself into an unwilling woman. A dread mixed of cookies and chocolate ice cream and chicken gravy and butternut fudge. He heard a voice screaming, "Breathe, God damn it! Breathe, Paul!" The lips clamped down again. The breath blew down his throat again. Blew down like the dank of suck of wind which follows a fast subway train. Pulling sheets of newspaper and candy wrappers in it, and the lips were withdrawn, and he thought, for Christ's sake, don't let any of it out through your nose. But he couldn't help it, and that that fucking stink. Breathe, God! And the unseen voice shrieked, and he thought, I will, anything, just don't look at me anymore, just don't affect me anymore. And he tried, but before he could really get or start, her lips were clamped over and over. Lips as dry and dead as strips of salted leather. And she raped him full of her air again. When she took away the lips this time, he did not let her breathe out, but pushed and moved into a giant breath of his own. Shoved it out. Waited for her unseen chest to go up again on his own. Well, he had been doing his whole life without any help from him. When it didn't, he gave another giant whooping gasp, and then he was breathing again on his own and doing it as fast as he could. The flush of smell taster out of him. Normal air had never tasted so fine. He began to fade black into the haze again, but before dimming world was gone entirely, he heard a woman's voice mutter, "Whew, that was a close one." Not close enough, he thought, and fell asleep. He dreamed of the piling, so real he could almost reach out again and slide his palm over the green-black fissure curve. When he came back to his former state of semi-consciousness, he was able to make the connection between piling and his current situation. It seemed to be float on his hand. The pain wasn't tidal. That was the lesson of the dream, which really wasn't a memory. The only pain to come and go. The pain was like the piling, sometimes covered and sometimes visible, but always there. When the pain was harrying through the deep stone grayness of the cloud, he was dumb. He was no longer full. It was still there waiting to return, and there was just not one piling but two. The pain was the piling, and the part of him knew that there was a long time before most of his mind had knowledge of knowing that the shattered pilings were his own shattered legs. But it was still a long time before he was able to break the dried scum of saliva that glued his lips together and croaked out, "Where am I?" to the woman who sat by his bed with a book in her hands. The name of the man who had written the book was Paul Sheldon. He recognized it with no surprise. "Sidewinder, Colorado," she said, when he was finally able to ask a question. "My name is Annie Wilkes, and I know," he said, "you're my #1 fan." "Yes," she said, smiling, "that's just what I am." And I'm going to stop it right there. Thanks for listening.